Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. I'm also very proud to often be described as the senator for the nonprofit sector. Welcome to today's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, brief conversations with people I find fascinating. Now, the reason that I am describing myself that way is because my very special guest is Jessica Doiron, Maryland's nonprofit navigator. Jessica, thank you so much for taking time out to chat today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see what you have for me today.
Yay. Well, I think you are doing an amazing job, and I want folks to know all about you and the sector, and we're going to cover a wide berth. But before we start, I just want to talk about your background. You grew up in Louisiana. You went to school at University of South Florida. Maryland is really different from the South. What was the biggest culture change coming here?
Honestly, the cold. Outside of that,
Okay.
it feels like home. I live in Baltimore City now
Yes.
and living in New Orleans for a few years. I grew up in outside of Lafayette, and the people are so friendly and it's artsy and music and just the culture is so alive and the city is so alive. It has a really close feel to living in New Orleans. So very, very homey, very welcoming.
Good. Well, I'm so glad about that. Your background has been in social work and mental health and supporting people directly and indirectly. You were also at the federal government at HHS, the Health and Human Services, where things didn't end so great. Why don't you just give us an idea of your professional journey?
Yeah, so I have a pretty non-traditional trajectory path. I started in school to be a chemical engineer at LSU, fresh out of high school. I know.
OSU, OSU,
Louisiana State University, LSU.
LSU. Thank you.
Yes, no worries. Yeah, I started at LSU for chemical engineering and found that was not the thing for me. Moved into doing lots of food management work, things like that, and found myself leaning more into doing like group homework, things like that. After a bit of doing that sort of work, I had a supervisor reach out and ask about considering going to school for social work because she was actively pursuing her master's degree and she saw it was really aligned with the work I was doing. And I picked up and started going to community college after that. I completed my AA and went straight through to my bachelor's of social work, moved to Florida from Arizona to get some cheaper tuition there. But
Yeah.
it was a great experience. In my undergrad, I had the opportunity to be able to do research for post-traumatic stress disorder in children.
Mm.
And that was a really eye-opening experience. And um, into my internship, I ended up being at Jewish Family Children's Service doing case management one-on-one with foster children.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
Um, so through that experience, I was able to really connect with the children and find a passion and love for working with foster youth. And I completed my bachelor's and was able to move into my master's in social work,
Mm.
where I pivoted more into policy administration and community practice. In that program, I was able to intern at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the employee experience and customer experience team, where I assisted to really clean up the grants process. It
Right.
wasn't something I was interested before, but
Right.
really coming in and working with first time grant recipients at our agency, I was able to see the difficult parts of that.
Right. And then you were doged.
I was.
The
So
Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, did cruel, massive layoffs at the federal government. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Elon Musk.
Yeah, it was a really crazy experience. I was still interning in Arizona and
Hmm.
I was offered a full-time internship through Pathways and into a full-time position and I picked up and moved to DC last
Mm.
October and was subsequently let go February 14th.
Oh
Um,
no, Valentine's
yeah,
Day. That's terrible. Not so much love.
yeah, right. It was surely an experience, but
Wow.
through all of that, I was able to work with some wonderful individuals who also were let go
Good.
with me to volunteer for to help employees.
So let's pivot to what we're really here to talk about, which is the nonprofit Navigator. Maryland has the first one. I was very proud to come up with the idea, sponsor the bill. There are more than 41,000 nonprofits in Maryland, and there is no one who is working with them. And so, just for folks who haven't heard about it, it's we have an ombudsman, and I didn't want to create a gendered name for the role. So, nonprofit navigator, the alliteration, um, to help those folks navigate our state government. So, how did you first hear about the position? Why did you think it was a fit? Just talk about the journey of getting you there, and then we'll dive right into what the job is.
Yeah, I really honestly saw the position listed on the state government website as I was digging through constantly anything that I could be close to where I was, something familiar,
Yes.
and was excited to be able to apply for it. I felt like I was a really good fit for it just because I had such a strong background in really preparing people who had been given grants through the federal government, as well as assisting people in like a behavioral health setting. So it kind of married the two, like
Mhm.
federal policy and grant policy, grant experience with the one-to-one case management kind of side of experience and work I had done in the past.
100%. So I'm holding up my button, which those who are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast may not see, but it says I heart nonprofits. What don't people know about nonprofits?
I would say people don't really understand and know the inner workings and kind of the nuances that come along with running and managing nonprofits in general, as well as the fact that it doesn't, I feel like people don't think it's run quite like a business, when in
Mm-hmm.
reality, it is almost one to one if you add in some very rigorous compliance.
Mm-hmm.
The nonprofit sector in general has been a really interesting kind of scope to watch. I think people kind of forget outside of health and human services, there is a wide variety across
Absolutely.
arts, and I've even seen research, and it runs the gambit.
So when I talk about nonprofits, people think about food pantries and homeless shelters and veterans homes and homes for people with disabilities, but they don't think about their local hospital, the local community college. There's so many. So nonprofits can be enormous and well funded, and they can also be kitchen table startups by someone with a passion to make a difference in their community. You're available to all of them, but it's more the mid or smaller ones that who need you and reach out to you, right?
Yeah, I would say probably at least 85 to 90% of those who I'm helping locate grants are falling into a very small category, maybe less than 5 employees, if any at all.
Uh-huh. So talk about the type of services. I understand that you have helped 103. You've just come on just not very many months ago, and you've helped 103 nonprofits directly, separate and apart from speaking at conferences or tabling at large events. Talk about the type of help that you provide.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of like to say I touch a variety of areas. I am here to assist nonprofits with any um, state administrative barriers they may face early award, whether that's something as simple as I'm stuck in an automated loop, and if I talk to a person, this will be a 5 minute problem, all the way down to I've been awarded a legislative bond. How do I activate my grant?
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as it goes with grant search, I help nonprofits to search across state, federal, local, and private grants. I usually will run them through Candid, give resources,
You run
anything
them
like
through
that.
what? Candid?
Candid,
I don't know what that is.
Candid is the foundation directory online. It's basically a grant search software that assists to find funders who are private and runs through 990s to pull them all together.
Okay. So the variety of missions. Is there a nonprofit? Is there something that has surprised you? You know, never thought about this type of group or this type of cause.
I talked to somebody this week who does mediation.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't really something I had on my radar, just the variety of mediation work that could be done. But even in things like reentry and IEP meetings for
Okay, hold on.
schools.
Reentry would be someone returning
Oh,
home
sorry. Yes.
from prison, and IEP is the individualized education plan for students with disabilities or challenges.
Yes. Yes.
I warned you, I try not to let my guests do acronyms.
Absolutely very fair.
Okay, go ahead.
So as far as yeah, they'll kind of go across the board as far as like all the way from working prison pipeline to behavioral health to neighbor disputes.
Yes.
So it was kind of neat to see somebody out here who can be across the board and be able to assist.
So I'm going to give a shout out. I don't know if this is the nonprofit you're referencing, but CRICMIC is one of my favorite nonprofits, the Conflict Resolution Center of Montgomery County, and they do mediation in schools, in neighborhoods, and elsewhere. And I am actually a donor and an honoree, but I think they do great work. You have served, Jessica, nonprofits in 18 of our 24 counties so far. What trends are you seeing across the state?
I think that it's been really difficult for smaller nonprofits, especially with this change in funding, the funding landscape that we've seen in the last year or so. And we're really seeing people pivot to kind of unique funding, which is kind of interesting. So people are really trying to diversify funding in unique ways. I've seen people going out and throwing new sorts of events, partnering with organizations who they might not have worked with in the past. Coming through and pulling together things to sell. Really, just any way that they can be creative and be able to pull in funds without having to rely explicitly on state funds, private donors, things like that.
Yes. So I'm gonna, on occasion now pivot to some of the bills, the laws that I've sponsored and enacted. And you talked about the funding. So, prompt payment parity. During COVID, there was a bill that was, let's make sure that our small businesses get their money right away. And I said, and nonprofits. And they said, well, let's do the small businesses first. So I had to come back the next year. Talk about getting nonprofits their funding because I had a case. One of my witnesses on that bill was a woman who got a second mortgage on her home in order to make payroll because government hadn't paid quickly enough for the work that they had done. That's infuriating. Talk about how well government is doing its job to support the nonprofit sector in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is horrible to hear. There are certainly some things that have come through, especially things like you're going to have to help me on the acronym NIMBLE.
We're going to get to that. The nonprofit interest-free micro bridge loan, and
Thank you.
we'll just do it now. The nonprofits can get up to $25,000 interest-free, low bar to entry if they're anticipating, if they have a commitment for federal, state, county, or municipal funding, not private funds, not our annual gala, but if that's delayed, they can use that to make sure they can cover their short-term expenses.
And
Not enough
through
people know about it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and through speaking to that team, the turnaround is fairly quick. They're a small but mighty team, but they're able
Mhm.
to turn around funds in a fairly short amount of time.
Mhm.
So use that. Additionally, I would say just the practices in general, it's been really nice to see organization or agencies work across the board, even when I'm coming in with organizations who are having a difficult time accessing their funding, speaking to them and then coming through and speaking to the programs, I've actually heard really positive things from the nonprofits with the programs, which is always a good
Nice.
feeling. And it's been really smooth to be able to get funding through. Yeah, it's been a good experience so far with being able to move funding.
That's great. Now, you talked about changes in funding. Are you talking about federal or state?
Federal mostly. I would
That's
say
what I thought.
most of the nonprofits who have been impacted with the funding changes have either been impacted through federal money or the pass-through funds.
Yes. Okay. Now, we have talked about and been frustrated by the demonization of the nonprofit sector. It's maddening that they are painting with a broad brush. What I always say is there are sleazy architects, there are sleazy plumbers, there are bad legislators. There can be a bad or ineffective nonprofit leader, but for the most part, they are dedicated, passionate leaders who are trying to make a difference. Um, what are you hearing in the field about, all nonprofits are bad, corrupt, thugs, some of the words that Donald Trump has used. How does that affect your work?
Yeah, I think that it's been really different to live in an area where that has been happening. I've never seen it before, like such an attack on nonprofits. I the general, I think, landscape of it is that the nonprofits are doing what they can to be in compliance, and they're frustrated with hearing that things are bad and there are bad apples, which absolutely exists, but it paints the rest of the group as villainizes the rest of the group as well. And I think that's something that's been pretty difficult for those I've spoken to, and it's something that I've found so far that they're willing to do anything to remedy in order
Yes.
to continue to receive the funding that's keeping them afloat and
Right.
alive and keeping people served in their communities.
So if there's an organization that someone is running and they're not in compliance, haven't filed the right forms or something, they could contact you and you could help them, correct?
Absolutely. I my role doesn't really cover the compliance explicitly, but I can absolutely connect them to people who are hands-on assisting with all of the State Department of Assessment and Tax and straightening those sorts of things out.
Perfect. Let's talk about the Mega Council. That's another thing that I created a bunch of years ago, the Maryland Efficient Grant Applications, because the analogy that I make is to the college applications, the Common App, where you don't have to submit the same stuff to 12 different schools. You upload in a portal, and then if there's one school that wants one extra essay or something, that still saves nonprofits a lot of time. We've expanded the mission of the Mega Council, but why don't you talk about your role and its role and what you hope the outcome is going to be?
Yeah, so the Mega Council has been really nice to see kind of play out. I came in and kind of in the middle of the happenings. So
Yes.
as I've gotten filled in, they have a couple of different work groups going on. There's a budget and management group, an Ombuz group, which is me, connected with the customer service group, which I'm now the chair of.
Yes.
Additionally, they have an application group, a reporting and monitoring group, and all of these groups are really individually working to kind of break out how we get to a common application and what pieces are going to be necessary across the board, kind of the nuts and bolts of in a perfect world, if we're having one application come through, what does each agency need to be able to get the information that they need to collect while making it not a huge uplift on those who are applying?
Yes. Yes. Um, I sponsored a bill with Delegate Sarah Wallach that is becoming law on increasing the audit thresholds for nonprofits. So it had been 10 years since we had tweaked that. How is that? Why is that important? And what's the impact it's going to have?
Yeah, audits are very expensive and very time consuming and take a lot out of a nonprofit. So it really allows raising the audit threshold really allows for those mid to low mid I guess mid-range nonprofits to be able
Hmm.
to break into a larger source of funding and be able to assist in a way that's more meaningful.
Yep. And just to be clear, the Secretary of State can audit any group at any time, regardless of the level, the size of their budget or something. So this isn't some get out of jail free, you're off the hook. Um,
Absolutely.
so hmm. Maryland was the first nonprofit navigator, and I wonder what you've heard about other states and whether others have checked in with you and learned about what you're doing to see if they want to replicate this.
So far, not yet. I have seen murmurs of California. I think you shared
Yeah.
an article over to me for that.
Yes.
Outside of that, not really anything on the forefront. I've heard of maybe not similar, but assisting nonprofit work at community foundations. But outside of that, on the public side, not
Right.
much.
Okay. Well, they just don't know what they don't know yet. So the National Council on Nonprofits has a kind of greatest hits, and they pull the interesting legislation from states, and then we swap ideas. So I learn what they're doing in Montana or Mississippi or Connecticut, and they learn about all the cool things we're doing in Maryland. We are going to be having a reception and a panel actually at National Conference of State Legislatures in this summer. So that's going to be good, and I'm hoping that more folks will engage on that. How do you see? What are your predictions for the future of the nonprofit sector?
I see a future where nonprofits are more reliant on the private and maybe income side of funding,
Mm,
really leaning into diversified funding and pulling a bit more out of the federal and government funding landscape just because of the unpredictability within the last year or so, and making sure that they're able to keep funding and operations afloat.
yes. So you mentioned the word diversity, which was also on my list of questions. Nonprofit sector is often led by different nonprofit groups are often led by women or people of color. What extra challenges or opportunities does that provide?
Oh, I feel like it's something you probably see a lot in your work as well. It's really difficult to make people feel like they're allowed to take up space
Hmm.
and they can partner and they're worthy to partner and you should actually apply and put your hat in and the imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
So really just making sure that we're bolstering these individuals and giving them really just the gumption they need to be able to go out and apply and kind of make the moves that are necessary to be able to be successful.
Yes. I'm going to pivot to one totally random question, which is how nonprofits use technology. And again, we're mostly talking about small to mid-sized groups. I know that Johns Hopkins is all in on all the things, so I'm not worried about them. How do they get tech training, tech hardware, software, and be able to afford that in their budgets and all the information they need for efficiency and customer service?
So there are kind of a few different ways you can make that happen. I have seen nonprofits use part of their 15, make sure you are always using your indirect costs. If you are not always using your indirect costs, please use your indirect costs.
Okay,
That is
hold
what it
on.
is here for.
Define what that is, because that was one of my bills.
Absolutely.
I've done it twice.
Indirect cost is anything, basically, it's your overhead cost
Yep.
for the work that you're doing. Make sure that you're utilizing that to its max. You can use that to upkeep your buildings, upkeep your tech, making sure all of the security is in place.
Mm,
There are also some security based grants and funding, especially additionally, if you're rural, there's grants out there for technology. Lots of grants out there specifically for rural technology.
yeah,
Yeah, there are opportunities out there. I would say get up on as much free training exists. There's a lot available, a lot across the board.
and
And
get in
yeah,
touch with Jessica, who can connect you. Jessica, talk about your newsletter, which is
yes,
a great
I
source of information. How can people learn about it, sign up for it, and why should they? What will they learn?
yeah, I put up a monthly newsletter. It comes out the second week of the month. Basically, I share out information on any upcoming capacity building trainings that are happening across the state and nationwide. Additionally, federal, state, local, and private funding opportunities within the next month or so. I try to keep it as far out as we can.
Hmm.
And the benefit of that is it's grants you don't have to search for yourself. They all
Yes.
live on a centralized website through the Department of Commerce. If you look up the nonprofit Navigator Commerce, it will pop up. That's the easiest way to find it. And that's also how you request appointments and assistance and things like that.
Perfect. There's another bill that I've got to give a shout out to because 5 times the Senate passed it, and it's actually the color of my shirt. So green, the green and renewable energy and efficiency for nonprofits. This is going to help nonprofits lower their energy bills and reduce their carbon footprint. It's a revolving loan fund, interest free, and nonprofits only have to pay to show up at the table with 10% of the cost, and this loan fund is going to offer the other 90%. Why don't you talk about the impact of what that could mean for fire stations and food pantries and children's theaters and all those places?
Yeah, I really think the biggest thing is just being able to upkeep and preserve the buildings and save the funds to be able to do other things with. I mean, if you can cut your energy costs and save yourself a couple $100 a month, that's money that can go directly to overhead, directly to buying items for the people you're serving, gas to get to where you're going.
Right.
As costs go up, the extra change here and there adds up.
100%. Well, so that was signed into law as part of the energy bill of the Utility Relief Act. We finally just got tired of the House killing it, so we wedged it into the Mondo Utility Relief Act in both the Senate and House, and that's how we finally got it passed. So it'll be starting. So watch for information about that. And Jessica will certainly be featuring it in her newsletter when it's ready to go and people are eligible to apply. So before we get to the Fast Five, Jessica, let's talk about your position. So when I created this, it's one job in our enormous state government, and it's one position in the Department of Commerce. But unfortunately, one of my Senate colleagues put an amendment on that made it, that put a sunset on the bill and said that this position expires in 2 years. And what that meant, what that means, is that you are contractual and not a full official employee. And that means you don't get health insurance, you don't get benefits. Talk about that just as a worker, as an employee, as a human being, because we're trying really hard to fix that, and it passed the Senate, but didn't move in the House. So talk about that if you would.
Yeah, I um it's it's definitely difficult to kind of manage with it being like a temporary position. I came into this role after being doged, and it was a very short amount of time that I'd moved to DC. So just the stability and having something consistent and yeah, consistent is just important to be able to continue to function in a way that's meaningful in a meaningful role.
And I don't want to get into your personal life, but do you have health insurance from any other resource now?
Yeah, I was able to get insurance. It's just at a bit of a higher, which is
Sure.
what we got. It
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, but not ideal. And it should be given to you as a matter of course and a matter of respect. All right, Jessica. Jessica Doiron, it is time for the Fast Five. Five quick questions, five quick answers. Question number one. Who is a shero of yours?
Oh, difficult question. Probably like Michelle Obama. She's just so cool. Like inspiration comes out big, bold, unapologetically herself.
Love it. Question two. What is the most favorite place you've ever traveled?
Oh gosh, probably weirdly enough, the Petrified Forest in Arizona. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Painted desert, lots of different landscapes in one area, and just very cool history.
Nice. Question three. Other than crocheting, and you are crazy for crocheting, how else do you like spending your free time?
I am actively learning piano, like row your boat learning piano. It's very early.
Okay.
But piano, I do a lot of other very hands-on craft things like making trinkets out of clay. I also really enjoy taking my dog out for walks. I have a little old lady rescue dog, and
Nice.
we have a great time.
All right. Question number four. Tell us something that is either on your literal or figurative bucket list, something you fantasize about wanting to do.
Ooh, I really think it would be interesting. I want to go to Italy very badly. I want to do a gluten-free tour because I don't do gluten,
Okay.
but Italy apparently has very good gluten-free food.
All
So
right.
I think it would be very cool to go on an Italian gluten-free tour.
I love that. Question number five. Jessica Doiron, our nonprofit navigator in Maryland, doing great work here. What is your hidden secret superpower? What's a skill or talent you have, something you're really good at that most folks can't do?
I feel like I am really good at being able to back out and look at a problem or a system as a whole and kind of be able to rework things. I process improvement, I would say, is my superpower.
Nice. Well, that's a good fit then for this job. So, Jessica, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for inaugurating this important position in our state government. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work with you and appreciate the chance to kibitz with you today.
I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Stay well. I'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye
Bye.
bye.